Hello, this is Patrick Ash, author, musician, elder millennial with the angst to go with it. And today I want to talk and rank one of my favorite musicians, artists, songwriters of all time, and that is the great, late Leonard Cohen. I've had a tribute video for him in the past. He, of course, is a huge, in fact, probably the primary influence on my poetry book, Typical Tragedies, a book of poetry. Links below. This is heavily inspired by Leonard. So I had my own little tribute however many months ago. And so I wanted to go ahead and do an album ranking. Now, before I start that, I want to do a kind of a shout out to his earlier, like his written work. Beautiful Losers, of course. His early novels, I have, of course, immense respect for the fact that he was a poet and novelist prior to becoming, a world famous songwriter. And so, of course, his early poetry is fantastic, and so much of it overlaps with his first few albums. So definitely check out if you're a fan of his lyrics. So there's various anthologies, and some of his recent works I really, really love. I don't have it on hand because it's in my car, but the posthumous release, The Flame, fantastic collection of both his lyrics and standalone poetry, and that I highly recommend that. In fact, that might even be my favorite collection of Leonard Cohen written works. It's just fantastic, and it's big and comprehensive. And of course, Book of Mercy is a strong kind of obviously spiritual collection, and several of the lines in here I've found to be very inspiring and both personal. He's often known, of course, for being a romantic. And for other Enneagram folks out there, he's very 4-wing 5. He's obviously the sexual or one-to-one subtype of the 4-wing 5. Anyway, but his kind of spiritual, meditative side, heavy in Book of Mercy, and I also think Book of Longing is a great collection. In fact, I think this is kind of a close second to The Flame if you're only going to get one or two of his books. So I love this one. This actual Book of Longing, which, if you were to look through it, I've got I have pages where I made a bunch of inspired notes, and this was actually, if anything, was the biggest influence on my own poetry book. So yes, definitely recommend that. All right, so if you're here for an album ranking, I guess I'm going to give a second shout out to his live albums, Cohen Live and Field Commander Cohen. A theme here is going to be I particularly love his later work, and so definitely recommend Live in Dublin. This is kind of like both the DVD and CD collection, so it's pretty large. I like physical media, that's me, but anyway, so this is a fantastic performance if you are if you want to see him live. This is one of the later, I think may have been one of his, if not last, live release. So it's a great one. And I was so fortunate to have seen him in December of 2012 in Boston. I'm very glad I had that opportunity. It's one of those, I made a special trip so that I could catch him, and the show was just amazing. Not only the performances, but he had that trademark humor, kind of making a few comments between songs, and of course his performance was very heartfelt. You could, even though again, this was 4 years before he died, and the fact that the show was 3 hours long was amazing. Anyway, so all of his live albums are really good. Perhaps my favorite, though, I'm gonna go with this, is Live in London. This was from 2008 when he first came back. If you know the backstory, You know, he had kind of taken an indefinite hiatus, I think, from music, and then when he was kind of being financially defrauded by his manager, they went to court and all that stuff. He had very little money, and so he came back and went on the road and all that. Anyway, but this performance live in London, the live versions here are amazing. From one side, and the set list, of course, is great. Playing older songs, newer songs, and I highly recommend it. All the versions of, you know, So Long Marianne and Hallelujah, of course, and Who by Fire. I love that live instrumentation on that. Yeah, Boogie Street with Sharon Robinson. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm just, total 5 out of 5. One of my favorite live albums, period. All right, now let's get, of course, to the album ranking. So that's what we're here for, right? So the way I do album rankings, I start at the bottom, work my way up. And with a lot of his, I'm just going to make this kind of general statement that some of his lower albums, like I'll have a song in MP3 or whatever, so I only have like the actual physical CD versions for like my favorites. But anyway, so I will kind of just as a general one. This is one of the first. I think this was the first Leonard Cohen album I bought. Of course, his Essential, which if you're new to Leonard Cohen and if you only want to get one release, this is the one I would recommend, and that is the Essential. I know there are other series of these that exist, and some of them may be picked by record executives or whatever. But this particular one, I've looked it up. He chose the songs that were on this release, and it is a fantastic collection. Like, it really is a great showcase of his work. So if you're only ever going to get one, and honestly, this is why I don't have a lot of his earlier albums on hand, is because this is a good collection. 18 songs on disc 1, and what is it? 15? 13 songs on disc 2. And this version, this exact one has a third one with, I think, I'm not sure if he chose those, but sort of like another few picks. So sort of like a little tag-along EP of sorts. But this collection is awesome. I think it really does showcase his whole career very well. A lot of his best songs. So I definitely recommend that if you can only get one. So all that being said, let's do our ranking starting at the bottom and working our way up. I'm sorry I made you wait, but there's so much credit to give in his career. All right. I'm going to start with the one. This is a love it or hate it thing. So obviously I hate it. It's at the bottom. The one Leonard Cohen album that I do not like. Just flat out, I don't like it. And that is Death of a Ladies' Man. Yeah, this was the Phil Spector album. And I think some reviewers out there have written something like they have very little in common. They have Jewish heritage, and they both, you know, are working music, and that's about it. Phil Spector, of course, famous early on because of the Wall of Sound, and he worked with so many of the great like Motown and oldies bands. But applying that Wall of Sound to Leonard Cohen, to me, it's like oil and water. It's like you know, a spaghetti milkshake, to borrow a line from one of our toddlers' songs, like things that are yucky. Do you like milkshakes? Do you like spaghetti? Do you like spaghetti milkshakes? No. So even if you like the Phil Spector, like with the Ronettes or those other great 60s bands, hearing that with Leonard Cohen's, it does not work for me at all. I know other people defend it. Some even say it's one of his best. I'm just like, why? Why was it made? Why do people like it? I don't understand. Like, because when I try listening to him, I'm like, all right, his great lyrics and poems with music that just doesn't fit. It doesn't work. I don't know. I've tried a few times, and I can barely even like listen to it or get through it. So I am not a fan of Death of a Blaze Man. The only thing I even like about the entire release is that the cover has Susanna Elron, the mother of his two kids, in the picture. So that's kind of cool. But otherwise, I do not like that album. Oh, yeah. So that's just me. I know lots of people out there, if people see this, they're going to comment, that's a travesty. It's a great album. You just need to be more open-minded. I've tried. I first heard it like 10 or 15 years ago, and no. All right, so that's how I feel. Similarly, totally different genre, Stradivarius did a similar thing with their album Nemesis, and people who have seen that ranking will know I didn't. It had like a wall of sound, like big, crushing, loud, and very poppy as well. And no, I don't dig it. It works with 60s pop bands, but not with Stradivarius, not with Leonard Cohen. Okay. The next album up is Popular Problems, which, since that one of the previous ones, the only one I don't like, I like Popular Problems. It's okay. It's his second to last album. It really felt to me as though it was a bit of a leftovers from old ideas, because all of a sudden his career was up and running again. I don't know for certain. I don't know the background, but I'm guessing there was an element of strike while the iron is hot. So because old ideas and his tours were getting so much attention, it was like, all right, Leonard, just take whatever you have on hand and let's make another album. I mean, I like what's it? It's something like the blues, somewhat like the blues. Like that single was pretty good, but I listened to it a couple times and the album, and I just couldn't. It was just okay. It felt as though it was leftovers or kind of half baked, if you will. So I don't hate it, but it just doesn't do much for me. Almost like the blues. That's the song. Had some good lyrics in it. I like what was it? There is no God in heaven, there is no hell below. So says the great professor of all there is to know. I almost feel like he's talking about Richard Dawkins. But I've had the invitation that a sinner can't refuse, and it's almost like salvation. It's almost like the blues. So some really great lines, of course, but musically, overall, it just doesn't do much for me. The next album up on my list is Recent Songs. So that was back in the 70s. I'm pretty sure this was coming after Death of a Blaze Man, like an album or two after that. And so it was something of a return to form, but kind of like with Popular Problems. It's good. It's a decent listen. It just doesn't have any or many powerful moments where like either his strong melodies, kind of like underrated, because we all know he's one of the best lyricists, period. I say that, I know subjective things are not objective, but many out there feel as I do that he's one of the greatest lyricists of our time. Anyway, but good melodies, just not as strong as some of the other albums. So I don't listen to that one very much. But it's a solid listen. I think this might have been the one. There's one that reminds me of one of my friend's books. Anyway, but moving on up the list, Thanks for the Dance, the posthumous release a few years ago, which actually has some good songs, and I love the video for Happens to the Heart. That is powerful. I almost feel like that is, in a way, what Johnny Cash's Hurt video was for Johnny Cash. I almost feel like that Happens to the Heart video for Leonard Cohen. I mean, very, very different, but I feel like those are like if that was like the final word from Johnny Cash, I feel like this is like the coda from Leonard Cohen, if you will. It's just beautiful. It's wonderfully performed, and initially it doesn't seem like the video and the lyrics match, but they do in a roundabout way, and it's just loaded with symbolic and just atmosphere, and it's just wonderful. Anyway, so I love that, and there were several other tracks on Thanks for the Dance that I like, but I think the big drawback is that it's too short. Is that I think it comes in about 29 minutes, and so it's just barely. You can barely call it out because I think it's 9 songs. So I once had like a little chart that I made. Like on one axis it was like the length, like the number of tracks, and on the other axis it was like the total length of the release, like to determine whether or not it was an EP or an LP. I think this just barely makes the definition because I think 9 tracks pushes it over to what I would consider an album, which 8 tracks, of course, many old albums are that way, but they are 35, I think 34 minutes is my cutoff, 35 minutes. So, but beyond that, beyond how do you define an LP or whatever, it's it feels short. It feels like you listen to it and it's just quickly over with. It has a few kind of nice little vignettes about what's it about, like, listen to the hummingbird, don't listen to me, and I think that was the final track. And what was it? There was one about like catching the glance of a stranger. I can't remember. So other songs, like they're decent. It doesn't feel quite as like as half baked or whatever as like Popular Problems did in recent songs to a degree, but it's good. It's solidly good, and it's just not as memorable as these higher ones. So yeah, it's but I like it. So next album up is Dear Heather, and Dear Heather is an interesting album because it was in that, I think it was in that time period where he was in the Buddhist monastery, the Zen monastery in California, and Mount Baldy, I think it is. And this album is just a unique blend of both like lyrical styles and musical styles. It's kind of like all over the place. And oddly, it does kind of work, even though it's probably his most variegated album, for sure. So in a way, it's both I want to say strength and weakness, because it's interesting and having all this variety, but yet it also doesn't, there aren't many songs that really like strike your heart, in the feels as others do. The Letters is a really good song. I particularly like the mood and the atmosphere. Sharon Robinson again, fantastic singing. Speaking of voices here, born with the gift of a golden, or rather sore voice in my case. Catch that I'm Your Man reference. All right. But yeah, it also has like what was it, the Day They Wounded New York, which is like the 9/11 song, which works fairly well. Excuse me, still getting over my cold here. I have a very deeper than average, which is than I usually am. So it's apropos that I'm doing this Cohen album ranking. So the Villanelle for Our Time was pretty good. So there's a few songs that are interesting. I like the title track. It's a little abstract, but then I think it ends. I don't know if this is a bonus track or the last track, like the Tennessee Waltz. I know Leonard Blank's country, but it sounds very like out of left field and just kind of like an oddball among other oddballs on the album. So it's good. It's just it's a mishmash. It's a strange brew, to reference that classic rock track. Okay, moving up, let's go with Songs of Love and Hate. One of his earlier albums, and it is, I think it true to its title, it's a really interesting mix of his kind of intensity. And I think like he went for some different kind of vocal, more raw. In a way, this is like the death metal version of Leonard Cohen. So, but still like plenty of atmosphere and clever lines and lyrics. And this is kind of closely, I feel similarly with this as I do the next album up, and that is Songs from a Room. So these are some of his earlier albums. They have a few of his classic tracks. They do, I will say, blend together in a way. Like this is juxtaposed from Dear Heather, which is stylistically and lyrically just very kind of mixed and variegated and all over the place. But these are a little more cohesive in a way. They run together a little bit. His first few albums, Songs from a Room is that way, but it also just has, I think, we get into like the more heartfelt, some of his classic tracks, that I think are really well represented again on his picks on The Essential. So when I want to hear early Leonard, I really do go to this actual album, because some of the other ones, like, they just feel a little like Phil. But I love, like, Avalanche is a good song, and of course Joan of Arc, and see, I'm blanking on a few other ones. So it's like, I like it. It's good. There aren't like many bad songs, like with some of the lower ranked ones, where it's like there are songs I'm just not into. Both of these I often will listen to them like while I'm writing. So very good, kind of meditative albums. All right, so I'm trying to kind of keep it moving. I'm usually a little too verbose. Next album up is Old Ideas. And in many ways, I would consider this something of a comeback album, because, again, this was when he came back to touring. And he hadn't released an album quite yet when he was touring in like 08 and 09, I think. And then I think it was early 2012 that he released Old Ideas. And I feel like there's so much classic Leonard on this. And so this was however many years, I want to say like 6, 7, 8, maybe 7 or 8 years after Dear Heather. And I feel like he was intentionally going back to a more stripped down, a lot of just kind of classical, if you will, that sound, and a few strings and that kind of thing, but pretty straightforward instrumentation. And some of his like classic tracks, Show Me the Place, I love that one. Going Home, of course, is his mortality. Like, I know I don't have many years left. And also like Come Healing, that's a nice one. It's just a very I don't know, feel good. I say feel good when it comes to Leonard Cohen, but it's kind of that familiarity. It's almost more of like something that he's offering as a friend rather than this intense, deep artist. So it's nice. I think the last track, Different Ways, I think it is. It's kind of an odd pick for a last track. Some of the album, like the track ordering on albums, is kind of strange to me, which is why I once again recommend this, because it fits really well in terms of track order, whereas some of his albums are a little strange. I don't know if that's his choice or anyone else's, record company or whatever, but so yeah, Old Ideas, heartfelt. It was a little overdue. Few songs are kind of duds, but it's really is a great album. Now, next one up is New Skin for the Old Ceremony, and this is in a way kind of like a classic 70s. I think it was release from Leonard, and of course we have Who by Fire, one of his really great songs that I mentioned earlier. Sorry, I thought I was doing better when I started recording, but we're gonna get through it, right? I think is that the one where I don't know, I mix this up with some of his other early albums, because as you'll hear, I love his later stuff. But like, Take This Longing, A Singer Must Die. I think that's the album. That's gonna drive me crazy. People are like, no, it's not on that album. It's not another one. So I'll do a quick. So yeah, Singer Must Die. So there are many different classic Leonard tracks. I should probably just go straight for the track listing. And yeah, Chelsea Hotel, Lover, Lover, Lover. That was a really good performance I saw in 2012. And There's a War, Take This Longing. So yeah, this is one of my favorites of that era, and it was, and yeah, it was 74. So I was better at editing, and you wouldn't have to worry about me coughing, nor would I. All right, so that's one of my favorite of his 70s albums. So moving up, let's go for 10 New Songs. One of the more recent albums. I think this was early 2000s. So many great tracks on 10 New Songs. I love all the versions of 10,000 A Thousand Kisses Deep. There are, I think he has some long versions of it, like many poetic verses, but this is like the official album version, and it's I think one of the darker takes on it, and yet it's still just very moving, and many great lines that speak to one's experience. And of course, In My Secret Life, That Don't Make It Junk, Love Itself is a touching track I really like. I just like the overall feel of this album. It's more modern, but it works. I think it speaks to both, like, emphasizing his lyrics, and so it brings out his strength as well as Sharon Robinson's great voice and songwriting, because they collaborated like very much as a duo on this album. And of course, Alexandra leaving. Oh, when I saw that performance, and she gave that solo performance in 2012. Wow, that was amazing. That was awesome. Check it out on YouTube if you haven't. Boogie Street, of course, that's another really nice one. I love that, like, on the London album. All right, so yes, definitely recommend 10 New Songs. What a great array. It just has a moody feel. By the River's Dark, that's another, oh yeah. So you see, I'm getting the ones I'm really excited about. So yeah, 10 New Songs. That's which I think like 4 or 5 of them are on this. So I guess I'm just gonna keep pushing. You can see how worn this digipack is from all the times I've listened. All right, so next one up, You Want It Darker. This is a fantastic album, and it really is. I don't know how to put it into words, you know. Of course, it was released a few weeks, I think it was, maybe a month before his death, and like David Bowie's Black Star, there's a lot of parallels between that album and this album, both of which were, of course, you know, released shortly before their deaths, and in both cases, not only do they have songs about, you know, kind of reckoning with their mortality at the very, Leonard had been doing it for a while, of course, but kind of like a final word, if you will. But some of the just the moody songwriting works in both cases. You probably write volumes. There have been articles out there kind of looking at both of them as sort of little case studies or snapshots. And once you have someone of that caliber of a David Bowie or Leonard Cohen, like, how do they say goodbye? And about the best way possible. The title track, You Want It Darker, is one of my favorite Leonard Cohen songs. It's fantastic. The lyrics, the feel, the chorus, it's just amazing. Treaty, On the Level, Leaving the Table, If I Didn't Have Your Love, Traveling Light, that some nice instrumentation. I think his son Adam, as well as like I think Patrick Leonard, just really came out to do these songs justice on this. And that final track, I kind of have even trouble putting it into words. I love it. I think like that's about the best way there is to sum up one's experience, and really kind of acknowledge the bittersweetness of the ups and the downs, the good and the bad, and it's just I don't know. It's hard for me to put into words why I love this album so much, but yes, this is a true great. So next one up on the list would be Songs of Leonard Cohen, his first album. Of course, starting with Suzanne and all those classic tracks. The Stranger Song, Sisters of Mercy, love that one. So Long Marianne, one of his trademark songs for his muse and his lover, friend, lifelong. There's a reason why that name inspired me to name one of the characters in my novel, Upon This Pale Hill. I don't have it on hand. It's kind of a running joke of my channels. I never have it when I'm referencing it. And there's a couple of my videos where I didn't intentionally. I made the video because I had it on hand. But anyway, inspired. So Long Marianne inspired the Marianne character in my book in the sense of naming her, because that was the nature of the relationship between the protagonist Brandon and his kind of like long lost lover / muse of sorts. They probably have quite different personalities, like the Leonard's Marianne in this fictional one that's more in common with women I have dated. But anyway, so Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye, another classic one. So like it's just so much classic Leonard is on this first album. So I definitely recommend that. And next up is Various Positions. This album is what I call the mediator between that classic old Leonard with like the classical acoustic guitar, and leaving aside that dork age of Death of a Ladies Man. Anyway, so this is like the mediator between that older era and the new kind of contemporary, more experimental, synthy, but very, very artfully done, newer, recent Leonard Cohen. So yeah, but the song right on this, Dance Me to the End of Love, what a classic track. I think it's one of his go-to openers. Night Comes On is a very good one. Obviously, Hallelujah. I echo his sentiments. Not many of like so many artists. I'm thinking of Pink Floyd and Comfortably Numb. It's like, yeah, their most famous song, well, That and Money, I guess, where it's like, but that's not in their top. As I think I said in my ranking video for Pink Floyd, that's not my top 10 or maybe 15 or top 20, but there's so many other classics like Shine On and Echoes and Time and, But in Leonard's case, Hallelujah is one of, I would say, at least top 10 songs. I love his explanation, and that when some interview asked, like, why do you think people love it so much? Why is it so enduring? He said, I don't know. It has a nice chorus. Or it has a good chorus or something like that. It was very like, like, I don't know, but I guess it has of course, the chorus is just repeating the word 4 times. All right. But the Captain, Heart with No Companion. Oh, I love that song. That is a very underrated song. I often think of that song when you're looking for a purpose in your life and people are like, why can't you just get over it and just do whatever and quit thinking about it? Like, because it's Heart with No Companion, It's, I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair with a love so vast and shattered, it will reach you everywhere. I sing this for the captain whose ship has not been built, the mother in confusion, her cradle still unfilled, for the heart with no companion, for the soul without a king, for the prima ballerina who cannot dance to anything. Damn, Leonard can write some lyrics. Yeah. So that is one of my favorite. And of course, ending the album with, I think I criticized some of his other enders, but ending this one with If It Be Your Will. That is the live version with the Webb sisters. Wow, that hits straight to the feels. That really, really does. All right, so it's really it's the mediator between the older Leonard and the newer, and it really is representative, I think, of his overall sound. So if you're looking for just like a well-rounded album, that's what I would go with. Now, I want to get these last two because I think family might be coming home soon. All right, top two albums. The Future. I love this album. This is the one that got me into Leonard Cohen because I saw Natural Born Killers and several of songs from this or on that soundtrack. Just track for track from this, The Future, Waiting for the Miracle. What a great song. So many great lines. Be For Real. Closing Time. Go to closing song for his performances. Love it, love it, love it. Anthem. It's another one. It's hard to put into words. That's one of my all-time favorite Leonard songs right there. Anthem. Democracy, of course. It really kind of gives his spiel on politics, but in a way that's both thoughtful and deep and makes a few points. Light as a Breeze I really enjoy. Always is maybe, it's a nice little jaunty one, but one of his few instrumentals for someone who's known for lyrics. He closes the album off with the instrumental Tacoma Trailer, which is, it's just really cool. I like it. Yeah, this is a very well-deserved second place album because it is just amazing through and through. I think he produces with Rebecca De Mornay, the actress who he dated for a number of years. And yeah, and it's just fantastic. If you've heard it from Natural Born Killers, so many great songs. Yeah, I'm just going to gush for a while. But what is the one album, of course, if you've deduced, if you haven't figured it out yet, what is the one album I would put on the very top? And that is I'm Your Man. This is my favorite Leonard album. One could say it's like, wow, that's his 80s synth album. Why would you? It works so well. It really, really does. And it's just all 8 songs, back to forward, just one great track after another. First We Take Manhattan. It's like you didn't know he could rock, and that song just, it's great on the album. The live performances are fantastic. When I saw him in Boston, like all of a sudden everyone's like, tapping their feet so loud, like the theater was like, rumbling. Yeah. Love that track. Love that song. It's inspired a lot of the first book of my tetralogy. We'll get to that another time. Ain't No Cure for Love. That's a classic song. We actually had it as part of our reception at our wedding at my spouse's request. Everybody Knows. Another, all the great lines. What's it? Everybody knows the boat is leaking. Everybody knows the captain lied. Everyone got this sinking feeling like their father or their dog just died. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor. The rich get rich. Just throughout, like it's just a masterclass in great lyricism. Of course, the title track, I'm Your Man. I like it. I will say, oddly enough, it's one of those incidents where like the title track is probably my least favorite on the album. It's good. It's good, but I don't dig it as much as his other like go-to songs. Take This Waltz. What a classic. Very, very great. I mean, it is what it is. It's a waltz, but describing it in that kind of like visceral way, like it's a thing that. Anyway, I know I'm just gushing at this point, but Jazz Police. This is a love it or hate it thing that people often will say like, "Oh, I hate that song." I actually really like Jazz Police. It's a straightforward like indictment of people who are obsessed with people who are hypercritical. So I love that take. I Can't Forget is a great song, Rolling Down to Phoenix. And of course, ending with Tower of Song. You'll be hearing me long after I'm gone. Indeed we will, Leonard. Indeed we will. I think that's a great place to end. I just love this album backwards and forwards. I keep going back to it. The performances are awesome. And it's just, in a way though, it's really difficult to pick one album. That's why the live albums and the compilations are are great because it's just so many greats throughout. As you can see here, I'm a huge fan. I'm your fan. All right. Take care. Please like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'll see you.